Welcome to the Build Your Beautiful Business podcast with your host, Julie C. Butler. If you're looking to build the business of your dreams, then this is the space you want to be in. Join Julie as she talks about ways that you can successfully scale your profitable dream business, one that will give you ultimate time freedom and the abundant lifestyle you deserve. Julie will take you by the hand, sharing with you her business savvy strategies as she chats it up with her favorite online entrepreneurs. You'll get a weekly dose of boosted confidence as you learn as they reveal their insight, tips, and tools that you need to start building a profitable dream business of your own, one that you'll love and that works for you on autopilot.
Hi there. Welcome back to the BBB Podcast. I'm your host, Julie C. Butler. Today on the podcast, we have Deevo Tindall with us. Deevo is an extraordinary entrepreneur, holistic branding strategist, and content creator who redefines brand narratives with innovation and authenticity. After a thriving corporate career spanning over 15 years, Deevo embarked on an audacious journey to rewrite the rules of branding through his own entrepreneur venture. As the visionary founder of Fusion Creative, Deevo has carved his path by offering tailored branding and digital solutions that empower businesses to excel and stand out. Deevo's impressive portfolio boasts the launch of multiple successful brands, each underscored by the significance of an authentic brand message. Beyond his strategic acumen, Deevo is a master storyteller and master photographer. His holistic approach to branding captures hearts and minds, bridging the gap between imagination and execution. Hey there. I'm so excited to have Deevo on with us today, all the way. I was going to say all the way from North Carolina, but from Charlotte, North Carolina. Hi, Deevo. So nice to have you on the show today.
I hope it was all the way in the next dimension where I'm actually traveling and sitting there right in front of you in Costa Rica. While I look out my window, It's downpouring for the last 2 days.
That's okay. Back home, it's snowing 10 centimeters, I think, today. So I'm very grateful to the palm trees that are sitting behind me.
Yeah, it's a nice backdrop you have. Wait, what part of Costa Rica are you?
We're in Playa del Coco, so close to 25 minutes to Liberia, from Liberia. Yeah. So a little bit of the north part. So, and also less rainy part.
Some of the best Sevilla what's it called? Not Sevilla. Ceviche I've ever had anywhere in the world was in Costa Rica.
I've not had it yet. It's
unlike anything. I actually brought a recipe back with me from one of the chefs that I met at where I was staying in a little town. And he gave me his recipe for this little onion salsa he makes. And I make it here at the house. And everyone devours it before I'm halfway done making it. So, but I got it because he put it in his ceviche. And I thought, this is the best ceviche I've ever eaten anywhere in the world.
Yeah. And the other day we met some local people and I was like, you guys have salsa here? And he's like, what? And he's like, no, we eat pico de gallo. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, so don't look for, the salsa that we buy at Walmart, for example.
It's garbage.
It's imported. It's imported. It's the whatever name brand, President's Choice or whatever they bring here. But no name something.
Yeah.
So we got to make the fresh pico de gallo.
Yeah, they have amazing. I got to tell you about a little restaurant we ate at up in the top of the mountains in Montecito. It's on the volcano side. Yeah. And they have this little tiny place it sits up on the top of the mountain. You sit and you overlook all of the whole valley beneath you. And it's this little former Israeli couple that moved there. They must be in their 80s. And they've been making food at the top of this mountain for almost 30, 40 years. And now their sons and daughters have inherited from them. But the mom still sits behind the little grill and she's cooking up everything. And you walk by and she sits down. She gives you a hot cup of coffee, or in their case, it's like a Cuban coffee. It's like really, really strong, sugary coffee. But anyway, I get off topic.
I know.
I tend to do that. Keep us on focus.
No, it's good. It's good. I like it because it's more like of a natural coffee chat, right? But it's amazing because the food here is so good. Like when you're eating traditional, typical, local food from Costa Rica, like just the way they we can do that too in North America, obviously, but the freshness of the fruits and vegetables and the cilantro and the it's just so good and fresh and like bring on a bunch of fruits like that you pick out of the trees from the yard,
Well, I don't know that you can do it in North America anymore. Not if you're getting it from a commercial farm, because they've overused the soil so much now that there's very little nutrition left in the soil. And then the amount of pesticides and herbicides that they're putting on the fruit, it derives it from all of its flavor, not to mention the poison that you're ingesting. And I'm amazed every time I travel outside of America, which is a few times a year, the fruit and the vegetables taste so markedly different from, just orange to orange from, for example, in Italy. Like, you can just walk down the street and reach up and grab an orange off a tree and anywhere you walk, or the lemons or these big limonadas that they have there. Like, anywhere in Mexico, Costa Rica, anywhere I've traveled, Portugal, is like, the fruit and the vegetables, you eat them and it's like this smorgasbord of flavors exploding in your mouth. And the first time I traveled outside America, I was like, wait, what the fuck am I eating right now? What is this? And it was just an orange. And I'm like, how does it have so much flavor? Like, it was bursting in my head. It was so robust. And then you come back here and like, you bite into an American fruit and like, what am I eating? Is this toilet paper? What is this is in my mouth right now?
But even the carrots, like the carrots back home, are like, they have this chemically taste. And here the carrots are like, it's as if you just picked it out of the garden. But you know what's funny? And before we dive into branding and what we're actually going to talk about, the other day I was like, why are the oranges green? The oranges at the grocery store, the oranges on the market or whatever, they're green. And I'm like, and I wasn't buying any because I'm like, well, maybe they're not ripe yet or whatever. I don't know. So I look it up and I'm like, why are oranges in Central America green? They're not orange. And it says exactly that, because they are not put in this, I forget the name of it. There's a word now that they put, it's a gas that makes them turn orange, that and sometimes even dyed. And so by the time that our fruits and vegetables get to Canada, they've been coated in wax so many times. And, like here, they're so fresh that they look like, when you grow your own fruits and vegetables, they're not perfect, right? They're like, they've got these bumps on them, or these like brown stains or whatever. That's what they're like here. And they're so fresh and good, and they don't last half as long. Like, you put in the fridge a head of lettuce, and if you don't eat it today, tomorrow, good luck, right? But at home, we could leave lettuce in the fridge for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's if for anybody who hasn't traveled and is listening to your show right now, if you have not taken the opportunity to leave America and try something different, you're missing out on a whole new world, literally and metaphorically. There is something to say about traveling outside of America. We are not the center of the universe. We are North America. I'm American, so I'm speaking for America. We are not the center of the universe, as you've been told. There is so much more out there that is just really significantly better than what we have.
And some beauty to it as well, right? Like, so much beauty.
Yeah.
I mean, we do too. Like, I mean, right, Deevo, we have some beauty too in Canada and the United States, like, but there's so much more to, and we were talking about this before we hit the record button about how, we take it for granted, like, like just the conveniences that we get to have in North America. And then you move to Central America, and it's just like something so simple, like finding a frying pan that's not going to warp on you.
Yeah.
But little things like that, right? Like just figuring it out and just living more. I'm going to say too, like, one thing that we do more now is live in the now more than like at home,
And I would suspect you're outdoors more than you were at home. Not only just because of the temperature, but it's just more conducive to, everything has become so over commercialized in the West, in North America specifically, that no matter what it is, it takes on a financial snowball commercialization. And so in that process, you lose the personality, you lose the touch, you lose the intimacy of everything. And so anyway, there's a lot of amazing things about America. We do truly have one of the most beautiful countries between Canada and America combined anywhere in the world in terms of the landscape and the opportunities. But again, travel, there's so much more out there. There's so much more to see.
Yeah. And like I said, right, like life is just, we live one life, like live it to the fullest, right? Whatever that looks like. Yeah. And I think that crafting brand narratives can be part of that too, right? So I'm so excited to talk about that.
Thank you. I mean, what we're doing now is a form of branding because we've found things that we love and that we touch on and that have had an experiential impact on our lives, whether it's travel or Costa Rica or going abroad or eating the oranges that are not orange, they're actually green. And the message that we're told or the story that we're told in that space is what branding is. It's like how can you connect with something and then be able to tell a story about it? And so the oranges are not necessarily purposeful branding, but that is part of what branding is, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so important now when you say like in 2023, I think it matters so much more than it ever did because we have this need to feel that connection with people online more now than ever, right? And feeling that that relatability and connection with other people. And I think that more and more now it's so important. And also, like also an important part of that is like creating friendships, right? Like with people who are like-minded and stuff like that. But hey, Deevo, before we get started, you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I do not eat botanically dyed oranges, and my name is Deevo, and I own Fusion Creative in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we are a for lack of a better explanation, we are a holistic branding agency and marketing agency. And what that means holistic, which I think we're going to maybe dive into a little bit. But we do from inception to execution for small brands and entrepreneurs, anything in the branding world, all the way up to the amplification of that brand through marketing, through paid advertising, website design, all of those things. And so I run a small agency here with some superstars that I have been able to align myself with. Thank you, universe. And we help small businesses like yourselves really kind of tell your story and reach a larger, very specific niche audience so that you can you can serve that community that you really want to serve.
Mm-hmm. And I think so. Let's go back to that holistic branding bit because I think like more now it's being authentic and having more holistic branding is I think it's so much more important than it ever was. So can you explain how you define it and how it differs from like traditional branding approaches?
Well, you said something a few minutes ago that I really, really loved. Now more than ever, people are looking for this intimate connection, and it's a catch-22 because while technology is fantastic and innovation is brilliant, and we have the ability on our cell phones, for example, to speak to 7.5 billion people on the world. While at the same time that's innovating and enterprising and fantastically marvelous, like you and I just connected because of technology, at the same time, it's sort of forcing us into these little microcosms of our own doing. And in that process, we're losing the physical connectivity that we once had that is part of community. Humans are community-based organisms. We don't thrive in isolation. Well, some people actually do. We need isolation from time to time, but as a whole, as a general rule of thumb, we are community-based organisms, and we need to have that in order to thrive and survive and to connect and create and collaborate and all those things. And those aren't just buzzwords. And so holistic branding is taking the concepts that we just talked about, that need for community, that need for engagement, that need for interaction in a physical world and in a digital world. And it's about creating a brand experience that is consistent and resonant across all the touch points of a customer's journey. So it's how you answer your phone, it's how your website looks, it's what you say on social media, it's how you show up on podcasts when you're representing yourself, it's how you meet people in the checkout line at a grocery store. It's like, how do you come across to them? What's that perception that you're giving them? Because when you leave that space and they go home to their little world and their little microcosms, did you make a connection with them? Was there a story that was told? Did they have some sort of resonance with you? And so unlike traditional branding, which really focuses on sort of visual identity and messaging, holistic branding really dives a bit deeper, and it integrates your purpose and your mission and your values and your customer experiences and your engagement. And it's everything that is sort of like your social impact that you want to leave on the world. It's why you started your business. And it's telling that story and then using marketing strategies, very strategic strategies, brand amplification, paid advertising, social media, website. Everyone has a different approach, and then sharing that message with a very specific audience that you might not have had the opportunity to connect with were you not doing all those things I just threw at you. So that was a lot. That was a mouthful. Sorry, I hope that all came across.
No, but it was good. And you were talking and I had a question and then you answered it. So it was perfect. I know. But also I think it's important to know, like, okay, so if you're listening to this and you're like at the beginning phases of like trying to figure out your brand and your all that good stuff, that you're not gonna, it's not an overnight thing, right? Like Devo, I think like maybe we have this misconception that we have to have it all figured out like tomorrow before we can, like, so that we're going to have success in our building, in our business, right? Like, I think that it's important to know that some of these things, they come with time, as we grow, as we evolve, as we develop different skills, as our life changes, right? Like, it's all part of our story, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just it's a parallel with your own personal journey of your life. Like, you know, what I know at 45 years old is not what I knew at 15 years old. And so through the maturation of growing up and doing the things that I've done and creating the experiences that I've had, I've created I continually sort of add to this ladder of growth. And so your business is the same way. And you know, what's kind of interesting that I have found in this space, and I'm talking about my business as well, is that what I thought was my gift to the world, or what I thought I wanted to do in my life or my professional world, or even my personal world, even that's an iterative process and has evolved over time. Because what's kind of interesting here is the more you step into your purposeful North Star, the more you really start to experience what it is you want to do with the rest of your life or the rest of your business. And what you find is you're sort of, once you have sort of like a theology to follow, this North Star is your like your guiding principles. Once you start along that journey, you become so in flow with that you have like receptors and tentacles that you never even knew existed, that the universe sort of just starts to bring your way, in the way of people, in the way of opportunities, in the way of podcasting. Like, this whole idea that I show up as a guest on a podcast happened by accident. And it only happened because I started really following my North Star. And I was like, I really like talking to people and meeting with people and just engaging in cool conversations with people like yourself. And I could have never done that outside of starting my own podcast. And then once I started my podcast and I started really following my North Star, then I started showing up and people were reaching out to me like, hey, we want this dude on this podcast. I want him to show up. And it's like, now I'm just like, I'm growing, like I'm really matriculating into like my true powers. And it's like, I couldn't have done this 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, because I didn't really know what that looked like. So what you just said is brilliant. Spot on.
You're like taking the words right out of my mouth. You're talking and it's like you're talking about me too. And I think like, you know, you can do this whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, right? Like, I think that, you know, being a guest on podcast or having conversation with other entrepreneurs, you know, I think like if you're an introvert and you're like, oh my God, I could never do that. I think like, you know, just allow yourself to explore it a little bit, because it can be so rewarding, right? Like me, I love talking to other people. Like, I thrive off of that. That's why like I've hosted 3 summits so far, and they've all been pre-recorded together interviews, because I love talking to people so much, right? So I think that we owe it to ourselves to allow ourselves to go out there and just talk to other people. And, you know, like, I think it's important to mention too that even though you're maybe in the beginning phases of your business, and even though you know, we have these stupid voices that are like, oh, you know, but who are you? You're nobody yet, or whatever, you know. Well, that's bullshit. I think that we are all somebody. We are all extraordinary. We all have something amazing to share with the world. And I think that, you know, somebody, and more than somebody, many people are going to be incredibly grateful and blessed to hear and talk to you, right?
Yeah, I think you have a moral obligation. If you have a gift, or you have an idea, or you have something that you're doing, or that you feel like could change, even if it's one person, honestly, truthfully, even if it's one person, if you can impact one person's world with whatever it is that I call it your superpower, whatever your superpower is, and if you feel like that has an impact to be made somehow or other, you have a moral obligation to share that with the world. Because, as I've said a couple of times, we're a community of one. And just because you're white or black or male or female, or live all the way across in Bulgaria and I'm over here, that doesn't mean anything. We're all still interconnected, because now, I mean, just physically, we are connected through an interweb of technology, where you're in Costa Rica, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I never met you, but I can guarantee you the first time I met you in flesh, I'd be sitting here having these amazing conversations that took us 40 minutes to get into a podcast, just because we enjoyed having a conversation with each other. So you have a moral obligation to share that with somebody. And whether you're an introvert or not doesn't mean anything. It's just like, find out what it is you love doing. Really find out, and what's your gift, and what's your superpower, and what problems can you solve, and go share that with somebody. Like, you have a moral obligation to do that.
Yes, Yes, share it. Permission. So we were talking about authentic storytelling and branding. So let's talk a little bit about that more. So can you give us an example of like a business whose brand story you've helped shape? I love stories. Like I love hearing about examples and stories and how did that narrative impact their success? Because it really can, right?
Well, I have a lot of stories to tell. Which do I want to talk about? I'll tell you a story of a recent one. I actually, so prior to me being in the branding and marketing world, well, you're always in the branding and marketing world. If you own a business, you're in the branding and marketing world, regardless, 24/7. You may not call it branding and marketing, but that's you're always in the space of branding yourself. But anyhow, I digress. About 15 years ago, I did a lot of wedding photography in my first phase of my business. Almost 15 years of wedding photography. At the peak of my business, I was shooting over 100 weddings a year. Anyway, I had one client in particular who I photographed almost 12 or 13 years ago. I said 15. I think it was 12 or 13 years ago. We actually flew to Trinidad and Tobago. They flew me to Trinidad and Tobago to photograph their wedding. They're here in Charlotte, but they did a destination wedding. Anyway, so fast forward, I shot the wedding, fantastic couple, built great relationship with them. I photographed their kids. I photographed, a bunch of different milestones in their life along the way. I hadn't heard from him in about 3 or 4 years. And out of the blue, I got an email from her letting me know that she had quit her corporate world and was launching a new business. And she had been following me on Instagram and saw that I was now sort of playing in this sandbox. And she didn't have the slightest idea how to do this. And she wanted to know if I could have coffee with her so she could just have a conversation with me. So we sat down over coffee, ended up spending like 3 hours just having a conversation about everything, catching up and whatnot. And anyway, it turns out she had this really great idea. She worked in the healthcare world, and she wanted to privatize the services that she had been offering for so many years working for a corporation. She had this idea, and it was a mobile clinic that serviced a very specific niche in the Charlotte market that really at the time was non-existent. And so we helped her craft her story and helped her craft her narrative to build this business. And then in addition to crafting this narrative, we strategically helped her figure out ways that she could start amplifying this story. So building her website and getting her social media up and running and creating content for her. And really now she's doing our paid advertising campaigns with us. And what we did is we helped her establish her foundation for being an entrepreneur. Her why, you hear people commonly call it. Her purpose, I call it your North Star. Why are you in business? What is it that you hope to solve? What inspires you? What problems do you want to solve for this community that you're going to serve in this capacity? What is the resource exchange you're going to do in exchange for them giving you money? What problem are you going to solve for them? And once she became really crystallized on that, it became really easy because she's really fucking good at what she does. We just let her do her thing, and then we took her thing and we shared that with a larger audience. And so now we've interwoven her narrative and her stories into everything from her website to her marketing to her van that she drives around. And she's really started to build a fantastic brand of persistent people who follow her, we've developed a membership program for her service. So all sorts of different things. And the difference between where she was versus where she is now is she's clear on the value she's trying to offer, and she's now living that out, and we're helping her amplify that story. So that's a pretty good example of what we do.
I love that. And as I was listening to you, you're like, be clear on your mission, how you want to help people. And once you have all of that, figured out, which, I mean, some of the time we know what we want to do. We know who we are. We know, but then I think that we get stuck in this place of like, oh, well, it has to be professional on the website and it has to be professional on the social media. And it's like, no, you got to infuse your website and your social media presence and all of it with your personality, with your mission, with your story, right? And I think that sometimes we get tripped up on that, and we don't allow ourselves to put that, like you said, like on her website, right? Like I think it's so important. It's part of who you are as a business anyway. And so that's typically also what sells, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, what I heard you say there was a bunch of really cool points. Done is better than perfect, and in every sense, especially if you're just trying to figure out a way to get started. But what I would suggest is once you decide to finally step into that space. And I actually did a blog post on this yesterday, that gap between the thought and the creation, and sort of like what happens, like how many times you sit in your car, right, or you're driving and you have this really cool idea, and then you start thinking about it and like, I don't know, it's not that such a good idea, or like, what if this goes wrong, or what if I can't do that, or what if they laugh at me? And what happens is that gap continues to grow until you get to a point where it's like, looking back, holy shit, that's really far away from where I first had the idea, from where I am now. How the hell am I going to get there? So first and foremost, I would say, if you have an idea, let's start by starting. Like, that's the first piece. And then the second piece of it is figure out your foundation, like really be clear on what this is, this idea. Let's crystallize this. And you don't have to hire a branding agency to do it. These are things that you can sit down meditatively and introspectively, or get some of your best friends or your mom or whoever it is, and just sit down and or listen to podcasts, man. Like, listen to your podcast, listen to my show. Like, there's so many different ways now. You have access to so much information that you could extract if you just sit down. But for some reason, people are afraid to really put in that time. And I'm not sure if it's because they're afraid to find out the answers, or if they're afraid to find out, wow, I actually can do this, which means I actually have to do it, which means I have to have courage to do it. So shit, I don't have the courage to do it, so I'm not going to do it. So it's like, so there's a lot of different things that are at play there, right? But that's why it's really important to surround yourself with a community, because if you have a community, you've got a support system in place, and they can help you grow and matriculate and like do those things. So figure out what it is you want to do. Be very clear on that value, and then start building that foundation so that you can start doing something with it, instead of just like holding it in your head and like this idea that once was. I had this, like, how many people you talk to, like, oh, I had that idea. I was like, but you didn't do anything with that idea. You like sat on it, and now someone else took that idea and they did something with it because you didn't have the courage to do it. So yeah.
How many of us have books, have people sitting out there having books of ideas that never, right? Like, we all get them, but also we overthink the crap out of shit too much, right? Like, oh, you start kind of like picking it apart and overthinking it. And it's like, oh my God, just do it. Right.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I'm an artist, and you are too. So whenever I'm working on my website, you want it to be a certain look and whatever. But I even allow myself now. I'm like, you know what? No, this isn't perfect. I don't give a shit. And it's going out, and I will come back to it, and I will finesse it and make it perfect and pretty and all that stuff. But for now, good enough. Get it to good enough and get it out there, because honestly, like, people don't care if your page is not perfect. They care about who you are and how you're going to help them, really, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Having clarity on that, being able to articulate it is why you would hire us. Being able to spread that to a larger audience is why you would hire us. Getting it started in the first place, that's on you. And just being able to share what that brand message is, like, what is it that I'm offering to the world in exchange for your resource, in exchange for your money? And just start. Like, social media is free. Like, get out there. If you've got something cool, don't worry about that you have no followers yet. Don't worry about that you don't have a massive number of people engaging with you yet. It's sort of like, this is how I'm handling social media. I think of an idea and I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. I really like how that's fleshing out. I love sharing sort of like my process in the creation of the piece of content in of itself. Like, I just post whatever comes into my head. I don't really have a clear strategy on the sense of like, oh, I'm going to do this post and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this post. But I'm very, very clear and purposeful on the value that I'm offering. And so I offer that value in sort of an unconscious, conscious delivery way. And so that there's no reason why you can't start doing that, because in the process of doing that, you actually start to learn what resonates and what has impact and what people engage with.
Yeah. I love that. Because I'm kind of a little bit the same way. And truly, like, it really doesn't matter how we go out there and share, as long as we're showing up somehow, some way. I think that's key, and being consistent and, in sharing your message and all that stuff. So, okay. So let's talk about unapologetic branding, because we hear that more and more now. And so how do you guide business to find and embrace their authentic voice, even if it's unconventional?
Well, it sounds a lot like it's going to sound a bit repetitive because it's a lot of what we've already touched on.
Yeah.
But I would say really at the heart of that is we have a very principled and tactical approach that we do with our clients. So if you're asking what we do, we have a brand discovery process. It's sort of like a introspective, meditative, therapeutic, lay on the sofa conversation with a therapist or a coach or a counselor that's sort of guiding you through a set of principles and a set of questions designed to really allow you to unveil everything that you've been holding on to in this great, juicy, audacious idea that you have. And what happens, what we found out is that a lot of times people have these really good ideas, present company included, but we don't know how to articulate them. We don't know how to sort of build them from the ground up. We don't know how to connect the dots. We have like all these different things, especially if we're entrepreneurs and we're like, we're Swiss Army knives. And so we're doing all the different pieces in our business. And it's like, I got to get this done, I got this, I got this, I got this. But I still have this idea and I'm not really fleshing it out to the exact way that it needs to be fleshed out. And so we teach people unapologetically how to just share their truth. And it's not like we're like, okay, close your eyes and take this mushroom and fall asleep. And then we're going to start hypnotizing you. It's sort of like, it's a very structured approach to very interrogative questions that are deep, insightful, introspective, that forces them to really think about who they are, what they want to do, why they want to do it, how they think they can do it, and then what problem they're solving. And in that process, we take all that information and then we matriculate it through our own sort of internal dialogue with our team and like all our expertise. And then we build out this charter for them, this sort of guiding North Star. And then what happens is that when we do that process with them, it enables us to really get inside the covers with you and understand who you are and all the things we just talked about. So it's like, it's cathartic for us, but at the same time, because you're in this therapy session with us, if you will, you're laying down and we're asking these really pointed questions. And they're like, it becomes sort of like this back and forth dialogue of like, shit, I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea. Wow. Why didn't I think about that before? And, and we're documenting all these things. And in the process of that creation, we create their North Star for them. And then they have their North Star and like, damn, this is everything I was trying to get out, but I couldn't, but shit, let's go, let's do it. And so we've helped each other in the process, community, we've collaborated, we've built this little North Star for them. And now we help them support that and build that out. And so it's like a win-win for everybody because we only survive if they survive. Like my business, literally, if for no other reason, you can pay me because my entire survival depends upon me doing well for you. And if I don't, it's like, I have all the skin in the game, just like you do. So that's like the livelihood of my business is like we invest in you when you invest in us. Does that make sense? It's that community thing. Yeah.
No, totally. And it's just like I'm listening to you talk and I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. Like I just love like the way you do this with your clients. Like that's amazing, actually. Right? Like just getting deep down to the truth that, like authentic truth of who they are and everything. I love it. I think that's genius, actually.
Thank you. Well, I got the inspiration through my own therapeutic discoveries of like, I have a business coach and I've had a therapist for years just because I had early on in my personal life, I was divorced and I was just like, now what? I got divorced. I've got 2 kids. I'm like, so I found a really good therapist. And in the process of finding a really good therapist, it dawned on me that what I'm doing with her and being transparent and vulnerable and sharing like all my deepest, darkest shadows with her, I also need to be doing in my business. So I started thinking out ways like, how can I grow my business? Like, where are my faults? So I started like querying my closest circle of friends. And in that process, I realized like there's a gap between what we want to do and how we get there for small businesses. And there's not a lot of support in the sort of holistic perspective that we take at it in between. And so that's where this idea was born.
I love it. It's freaking awesome.
Thank you. My chair is like bebopping up and down. I don't know why. It's like slowly getting smaller.
Slowly getting down.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on over here.
Like you're like so passionate about what you do. You can tell like that you really care about your clients and getting those results for them and pulling the truth out and creating what they envision for themselves. Right. So yeah, like you can really tell like when you're talking to someone who has passion for what they do and care so much about their customers and stuff like that. So it's real nice.
Well, that's what happens when you find out what your North Star is. Really, like, I've been in business for many years as an entrepreneur and I love taking photographs. But as we talked at the outset in the green room, I found after 15 years in business that wedding photography really wasn't my cup of tea. It's just not my nirvana when it comes to photography. And I've had a camera in my hand since I was 12 years old. Like I've literally been telling stories since before I knew I was telling stories. So, but I don't really prefer shooting weddings anymore. And I really realized that my true power, my true superpower is working in an intimate capacity with clients, being able to tell their story. And that's in different ways than weddings. That's in business, that's in personal branding, that's in content creation. Like there's all different ways that I'm doing that now, but weddings just really aren't my thing. But what I really realized is in that process of that discovery, remember we were talking about the tentacles that the universe is always connecting to? It's sort of like that movie Avatar where they take their tail and they connect it with the bird that flies around. It's like, and the bird like suddenly takes on, like, we have that going on in our own life. We just can't see it. But so there's always like these little tentacles. And so in that process of me finding out what I was really passionate about with the camera, I also discovered that I was really good at helping other people grow their business. And like, I'm an idea dude. So I'm always like spitting out ideas in my head. So I was like, shit, how can I take that and do this and do that and all the things I love and really serve in some way? And I was like, branding and helping small business owners became like my cup of tea. So because I was following my North Star.
I love it. That's awesome. I love it. So more of us need to find our North Star.
I mean, why not? It's everything, right?
Why not? We owe it to ourselves. Dang.
Yeah. I mean, you said it earlier that you only have this is your life. Like, why not? Why dawdle? Like, what are you waiting for? Even if, like, for me, sorry, I think we're going off topic and you have to ring me back in. But, you know, one of the things I realized a long time ago, and is why I left the corporate world, is like, dude, I'm literally making no difference right now in this little corner of the world. Like, they don't give a shit if I'm here today or gone tomorrow. I'm just a number. And I don't really feel like I'm adding any value in any way, shape, or form. And I'm certainly not inspired. And it really, and especially after my divorce, I was like, okay, now what? Like, I just failed at one of the most major milestones in life. So like, what now? And so I had to really do a deep dive on myself and figure out, where am I fucking shit up right now? Like, where am I not showing up as I should be? And I found a whole lot of gaps. Like, there was a lot of stuff. And I was like, okay, if I ever want to do anything of importance on this planet, I better start closing these gaps down. And so it was like, why not? Like, what else do I have to lose? Okay, I might suck. And I've launched other businesses that sucked and failed. And I feel like the one I'm into now is really like my superpower. Let's check in 5 years and see where we are. But like, I failed at a shit ton of things, but it's like in the process of all those failures, I learned so much about myself and so much about everything and every single time. But you don't learn unless you like have to ask the questions. You have to ask the dirty, dark questions. Like, it wasn't their fault. There has to be me. Like, there's something that I also did. Right. And that was the same with my divorce. I was like, it couldn't totally have been her fault. Like, I guarantee I was an asshole in some way, shape, or form. So and you have to be able to ask those questions about yourself, because if you don't, then you're never going to be able to see anything, because you're literally sabotaging and wearing your own goggles that are just darkening your viewpoint. So
yeah. And I mean, not talking about, you know, your divorce or anything, because like there's, I'm sure, more listeners here that have also gone through that. But in life in general, in business in general, like shit's gonna happen. And you know, what are we going to do? Cry about it? Like, we can't go back, right? Mm-hmm. So just ask the hard questions. Like you said, ask the hard questions. Why did this happen? What have we learned from that experience? Mm-hmm. How can we take that? And when we know better, we do better. And then, you know, like some of the most richest people in the world have, you know, like Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, how many times did he go bankrupt? Yeah. He just got back up the next day and he rebuilt. Like, we do, like, you know, sometimes you know, we're going to talk about business here, but sometimes, you know, we start our business and maybe our launch doesn't go like we wanted, or nobody bought into our thing, or oh, maybe one person bought into our thing, and oh, you know, poor us, we're not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we have this pity party or whatever. Like, oh, stop that nonsense. Just because only one person bought doesn't mean nothing. And you know what? Like, if we give up way too quickly, like, I mean, oh my God, if I gave up after everything, like, I've been an entrepreneur now for about 15 years. And if I gave up when the going got tough, I would be in a stupid government job that I hate, that was soul sucking right now, and not in Costa Rica with my family, right? Like, we owe it to ourselves to keep the train going and to get back up when the going gets tough. Well, and it's going to go. It's going to happen. Shit is going to happen.
Yeah, well said. It's a dark, lonely, dirty, bloody road sometimes. And there's always another side to it. There just is. That's the law of the universe. The law of the universe is the yin and the yang, the polarity of everything. So, you know, not to be all like woo woo here, but you know, how do you know what's good if you haven't first experienced what's bad? And so you have to experience bad so that you can understand this is not what I favor. This is not what I'm looking for. I need something else. So you have to be introspective enough to sort of be self-aware around that. And I'm not saying I figured it out. Let me just preface that with everything. Dude, every single day I wake up and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know there are things that happen in my business, in my personal life as a single father. It's like all these different things. And I'm like, I have no idea how I got into this mess. But you have to be able to realize that you have a choice in how you respond to every single mess that you're presented with. And are you going to choose the bloody, dirty road of trying to find a way out, or are you just going to fold over, like you said? So you always have a choice. Like, you literally always have a choice in every single circumstance. How are you going to respond to it?
Yeah. I mean, that could be a whole nother conversation, right, Deevo?
I think we've had like 15 different whole conversations we could have on. It's been very wonderful having this chat with you so far.
I know. And I like, that's like I really thrive. Like, I don't know if going back to the whole woo-woo thing. I don't know if you're into human design at all, but like,
I just had my human design reading done last week.
It's human design is magical. Like, I don't know everything about it because there's a lot to learn. But when you know your human design and the way you do things and the way you work and the way, like, it's magnificent, because now I know that I thrive way more. Like, I thrive when I have a conversation with someone. Than trying to have trying to have a podcast, having a show by myself would suck. It would be so boring.
You mean just getting out there and like talking to people?
Just me talking by myself. I'm so much better at talking with someone else. Like, that's my human design. Like, that's like, if you looked at my chart and you'd be like, I'm open in like different areas that make me so much better when I'm talking to someone else. And then that conversation just like, psh.
Yeah. So you figured that out, and you're following your North Star, but at the same time, I would say, like, don't close yourself off to some other potential that you might not yet have discovered. You may find you may find that maybe a small 15-minute show of just you showing up and dropping knowledge might actually be very cathartic for a few people and helpful for you. Like, maybe it becomes your sort of like your daily journal. I don't even know. I'm just saying, like, I'm not deterring you or saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, that's great that you figured it out, but don't ever close yourself off to something else that might be coming on just because you've like, okay, I found it, I'm just going to do it. It's like, I'm eating this chocolate. I'm just going to eat it. Well, I'm sick now. It's like, right. So like, always be open to new ideas. And can I plug somebody? Sorry.
No, but that's like a really good point. Thank you so much for pointing that out, because, I also really love teaching. And whenever I'm recording a presentation or a training for a summit, for example, whatever, I love it. So it makes sense that I would be good at having a solo episode. So anyway, you were going to say?
Yeah, I want to plug for human design. I had a human design reading done last week by just a wonderful, very caring, calm, and very introspective woman. She's out in Hawaii. Her name is Elijah Starr, like Star, Starr. You can look her up on Instagram. I think her handle is Miss Curious Kitty, like a cat. I think that's what it is. There's some underscores in there, which is kind of weird. But if you look up Elijah, Elisha Star, you should find her. And she's fantastic at this stuff. Like stuff I didn't even know that she was able to extract and break it down for me so that I could really understand myself was phenomenal. So I'd like to just plug her. She's phenomenal.
Yeah. Send me her link if you find it after we're done, and then I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah. Or you could have her on for a show.
I could do that too.
Yeah, I did a whole podcast with her on her human design stuff, and it's phenomenal. She was just wonderful to talk to.
Yeah, human design.
She has a tendency to go down rabbit holes worse than I do, so just be prepared to bring her back in. I promise it will be entertaining, but you're gonna have to be like, all right, let's get back over here, girlfriend, because we just went down a channel we were not supposed to go down.
Oh, it's okay. I like trust that I'm open, and I trust that the conversation goes where the conversation needs to go.
I love that.
But bring it back. We're going to talk about so let's just close and finish. And so let's talk about branding and, authentic and unapologetic and all that stuff that goes into elements like web design, content creation, social media expertise. It's kind of like a package deal, right? How do you integrate these components to create a seamless and compelling brand experience?
Well, everything you do in your business is one interconnected piece of a larger puzzle. So whether it's your website or your social media story or your business cards or the pink colors that you choose to wear or the branding that you talk about on your podcast. Everything is a puzzle. And if you can, to borrow my holistic term, if you can think of your personal ethos, your professional ethos, your brand, they're all interconnected. Just like we talked about at the outset of the call, like community is one, like we're all just one. So it's not just a digital brochure, your website, it's a storytelling platform. So change your paradigm around that. Content creation just isn't about filling space with a photo of a selfie. It's about communicating value and engaging with your audience and having conversations with them. Social media isn't just about putting these perpetual, sometimes ridiculous updates out there. It's a tool for like building your community and your brand intersection points with them, so that when they hear that story, and it's not for everybody, like you have to change your mindset around that. I'm not attracting enough of an audience. I'm not having hundreds of people interacting with my content, because that's not the point. The point is to connect with people who actually give a shit about what it is you're trying to share or sell. And that's not going to be everybody. Like, it's just not, like, I'm sorry, but some people are not going to like your content. Some people are going to be upset at what you have to say. Somebody cursed me out yesterday because I said that wedding planners in the wedding industry were one of the biggest stopgaps for clients finding the right photographer for them, because they were letting somebody else make a very critical decision for them, which is highly personal and should never be made by anyone else but you. Like, photography in your wedding, if you're spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on your wedding, and photography is a large chunk of that in some cases, at least it is for me, I'm pretty expensive. You should probably make sure you like me. Like, we should probably be able to sit around a campfire and sing Kumbaya, or you take me home and meet your moms, because if you think I'm a piece of shit or you find me to be obnoxious or annoying, you probably should never hire me, because I have a very, very distinctive personality and I don't resonate with everybody. And like, some of your guests can be like, this dude's really obnoxious and loud and he talks a lot, but other people are gonna be like, I fucking love that Deevo dude, like, he's really cool. And so you have to figure out, in your personal landscape of everything you're doing, how do you tell your story so you can connect with a very specific type of person, and then be very consistent about it all the time? Don't change over here. Don't go over there. And like you said something brilliant at the outset, dude, completely detach from the outcome and focus on the process. And in the process, you'll start to find your resonant factors. Like, I understand we all want to make money. Like, I'm in the same company, girlfriend and boyfriend. I've sold and started companies. I'm in a new phase of a new launch right now. And I don't exactly look at my bank account every morning and be like, shit, I'm not making enough money yet. I need to probably switch gears and I'm going to start selling something. Like, I believe in what I'm doing. I believe that what we are doing is changing the lives for the people we're working with. And I'm going to see this through. And that might mean that I'm wrong about a few things, and I might have to tweak a couple of things, and I might have to make some adjustments, but God damn it, I'm going to make sure that this thing makes it through somehow. But in that process of making it through, I'm integrating everything. I do so much marketing. Like, I created a diagram the other day of all the marketing we do. We have 17 touch points that are proactive right now, where we are engaging in a unique and distinctive capacity, from website to blogging to newsletters to email funnels to paid advertising to social media across 4 channels to podcasting to guest podcasting. Like, I am literally doing everything you can possibly do for marketing right now. And I'm really starting to see the matriculation of those results, because I'm getting people that are now reaching out to me. They saw me on your podcast. Like, I would really love to have you on my show. I had a dude reach out to me yesterday who wants me to come out and talk about cloud computing. I'm like, bro, I know nothing about cloud computing. He's like, yeah, but your show would be really interesting. Let's have a conversation. But I don't know anything about it. So like, it's working. And so to answer your question, sorry, roundabout, I get carried away. Find a way to integrate the touch points, because they're all interconnected. Paid advertising works off SEO. SEO works off paid advertising. Social media and web design, they work connectively. They can compound your exposure if you can figure out the ways and the connection points. And every little thing you do is connected. Again, if you show up, I met a dude the other day. Sorry, I didn't meet. I encountered a dude the other day who has literally, what's it called when you put the whole design around your car? What's that called when you put all of your branding on your car? There's a term for
it. Branding on your car.
He had wrapped his car. It's called a wrap.
Wrapped. Yeah.
he had wrapped his car, and as we're driving down the road, he was literally cutting people off and then flipping them off out the window. And he was getting in like real road rage instances. And as I pulled up to him in the car, I just sort of looked over at him. And the first thought I could think of was like, dude, you need to take that wrap off your car right now, because right now you are not showing up. Because if I needed your services and he was a garage door fixer, I'm going to tell you right now, man, I am never going to hire you no matter what, because I don't care where you came from or what you just did. Like, no matter what just happened, there's no reason why you need to be doing the things you just did. And you're branding to everyone you just passed on the freeway that you're an asshole. So you probably should not ever drive a car if you're a road rage dude. Like, that's really bad branding, because everything is interconnected. And I just told this story to you, and you're going to broadcast it to your thousands of listeners, and someone's going to hear that story and they're going to use that as an example. And it's just going to sort of like, who knows, man, it may come back to karma him some way, shape, or form. I don't know. So that's how it works.
Totally. I get it. No, that's really good. I love that. Poor dude. Don't wrap your car if you're going to be an asshole.
Yeah. If you have road rage, do not wrap your car. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think if you remember anything about everything we talked about, consistency is the key, right? And so, baby steps, like start with one thing and then expand, right? Like it's a journey. Trust the process. It's a journey. We just get better and better at it. That's all. And same with the whole branding thing, right? Like, I mean, if you've been in my world for a little bit, if you're listening to this and I love pink and like you kind of can probably recognize my brand by now, but it wasn't like that. Like at the beginning, I was still trying to figure out what I liked and what I wanted and what shade of pink I wanted and, all that stuff. So it comes with process. It comes with progress and, but just do it. Just start doing it. Right. So Deevo, you've got this awesome ebook, Decoding Human Behavior. Tell us about that. And I have that in the show notes for everybody. So they want to grab that. And so what is that?
It's
Decoding human behavior.
Yeah, it's everything we've talked about on this podcast and everything we do distilled down into a simple ebook with some exercises at the end that can really help you better articulate your brand and who you are and the things that you really want to do to serve your community. And then being able to almost sort of genetically understand your audience so that you know who you're trying to sell it to, so that you can understand their pain points, and in the process take you through what your customer journey is so that you can better understand how you're showing up. And they're sort of they're actionable, transformative, and applicable things that you can incorporate and exercises that you can use to sort of help you figure out how you want to best show up for your brand.
I love it. So I have that link in the show notes for everybody. So make sure you grab that because that sounds awesome, actually. So Deevo, where I think you've talked about, well, maybe you didn't. Did you talk about where we can find you on social and how can we work with you? Like if someone's totally vibing with you and are like, my God, like I need to hire this dude. Like, well, how can we work with you?
Thank you for that opportunity. First of all, for being on your show. You can find me on my website, which is fusioncreativebranding.com. My photography is Fusion Photography Studio. That's been around for years and it's pretty a household name. On Instagram, which is where I play the most, I'm Fusion Photog, short for photography. That's soon going to change, but for now it's Fusion Photog. And then I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and they're the same handles. So, and then if you want to work with me, which I would love to have some of your listeners, I can offer your listeners a discount, by the way. We start everything with the brand discovery. And that's a phone call with me where we'll sit down and so I can better understand. It's a free phone call, just understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. And then brand discovery is the foundation we talked about at the outset of the call. Like I'll help you figure out your North Star. And in that North Star, you're given all the things you need to successfully get your business going. What you do with it after that is up to you. You can hire us to help you do that, but we turn over the keys, your blueprint, if you will, for success. And we have workshops and stuff every month as well that do those same exercises. So if you wanted to join those, yeah.
Awesome. So get on my email list then and get to know Deevo a little bit more. Like you're awesome. Like I loved having this conversation with you. Thank you so much. And I always love talking about branding because I think it's so important. But yeah, thank you so much I'm sure we could have kept going because, I think we have that connection.
Yeah. Well, we should do it again. And I think I need to get you on my podcast if you're interested. We can talk about some things that are not just necessarily branding and we can go down that direction.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Deevo. It's been so nice having you on the show. And if you're listening to this, I will talk to you on the next show, on the next episode.
Thanks, Julie.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Build Your Beautiful Business podcast. If you did, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Julie's included a link in the shows to make it nice and easy for you. And if you want to create a beautiful, profitable business of your own, make sure to go unlock your access to Julie's 6 must-have resources for female entrepreneurs. These resources will help you build and grow your business with simplicity and ease. You can find them at juliecbutler.com/freebie vault. We'll see you in the next episode.